Previously on WandaVision.
Wanda, who is this?
Boner.
So I have a couple things about WandaVision that I need to get off my chest. Just to be clear, I enjoyed the show for the most part, and at times, I even really loved it. WandaVision! Since WandaVision is the first streaming show from Marvel Studios for Disney Plus and marks a new era for the Marvel Cinematic Universe, I think it's important to take a look at WandaVision and see where the show fell short. Now, just so I don't seem like as much of a dick as that bureaucrat who likes to shoot children in the face, I'm gonna start off with the things that I did enjoy about WandaVision. Easily the best aspect of WandaVision was the strong acting across the board. Elizabeth Olsen and Paul Bettany excelled with more nuanced and varied material than they've had so far in the MCU and in most of their careers. In particular, Olsen nailed the subtleties to Wanda's evolving characterization, and Bettany turned in some of the best bits of physical comedy in recent memory. The MVP, however, was Kathryn Hahn, because who else would it be? Hahn is the best part of whatever she's in, and WandaVision is a career highlight, even if her character is one note. Newcomer Teyonah Parris as Monica Rambeau did well with the material that she was given, which is my way of saying that she really didn't fit this story. Randall Park and Kat Dennings return. I'm not really a fan of Kat Dennings' style of comedy, but Randall Park is welcome on my screen any day. Director Matt Shakman handled the varying comedic and dramatic tones pretty well. He is a veteran sitcom director. Notably, he's done 40 episodes of It's Always Sunny, so he did bring a background in television directing and a knowledge of the inner workings of sitcoms, which of course is critical to WandaVision's story. My favorite episode overall was episode 5, when Vision started to put the pieces of the mystery together. My favorite individual scene or sequence was the magic act in episode 2, where Vision couldn't stop saying flourish. And my favorite individual comedic moment was in episode, I think it was 7, when Vision walked out of a talking head segment and bumped his head on a boom mic. Now, notice how all of those revolved around Vision? Well, unfortunately, that's because Wanda spent a little too much time in this show wrapped up in the mystery box instead of having her own dynamically evolving story. And that brings me to what I consider to be the all-encompassing issue with WandaVision, and that is the script is pretty weak.
You look at stories, you think, well, what are stories but mystery boxes? And it goes on and on and on. I mean, look at like Star Wars, you got the droids, they meet the mysterious woman. Who's that? We don't know. Mystery box. Mystery box. Holy shit, so it keeps it.
Disney should hire this guy to write and direct a Star Wars film. And then another one. WandaVision is a mystery box. Everything is in service of the underlying mystery. And when you get to the bottom of the mystery box, there's no real rewarding prize to be found. It's just kind of empty. WandaVision takes place just weeks after Endgame and introduces SWORD, some kind of government, secret, science, military group that we've never heard about before and who really didn't feel like helping in any of the previous alien incursions on planet Earth. Thanks, SWORD. SWORD is led by this individual, one Mr. Tyler Hayward.
Here he is, the biggest douche of the universe.
Hayward is without a doubt the weakest character in the MCU, weakest from a writing and characterization standpoint. Hayward had no empathy, no nuance, no tact, no general plan. By the end of the show, I'm at an entire loss as to what his goal was. He didn't have any kind of coherent plan. If he wanted to bring Vision back to life from the start, why didn't he just tell Wanda when she was at headquarters and work with her? If all you needed was her magic, why not use the door she opened or the glass she shattered at HQ? Without a doubt, I cannot think of a character I despise more in the MCU, not despise because he was written to be loathsome, but because he just wasn't really written at all. As I mentioned earlier, Monica really doesn't have a role in this show. She's just kind of there to set up her character for Captain Marvel 2. I do want to say that Paris knocked it out of the park as Geraldine. It's just when she was exited from Westview that the material she was given started to take a hit. Jimmy Woo doesn't have a critical role, but hey, Randall Park is charismatic, so yeah, let's have some fun with Jimmy Woo, even though he has nothing to do with the real core story here. Not that there is a core story in the first place. To those who say that WandaVision was mainly about Wanda dealing with her grief, yes, but also no. Whatever grief she accepted in the end was undercut by bringing Vision back to life. Now all her grieving just feels empty. And while Wanda's grief was at the bottom of the mystery box, it didn't drive the narrative forward. WandaVision's story was built around Vision discovering the nature of his existence, Agatha pulling strings, Sword wasting government funding, and whatever else was needed to set up future movies. Finally, it seems like Marvel is ready to let Wanda's unique grieving process absolve her of responsibility for her actions in Westview. If Wanda's psychological terrorism of a whole town is no big deal moving forward, it kind of diminishes whatever grief she was working through, even more so than bringing Vision back to life. And before you say, but what about the kids? Yes, the kids, they were cute, but nothing more than literal plot devices. Their deaths were sealed as soon as Vision failed to survive outside of the Hex.
I want to talk about the dialogue. Can I talk about the dialogue for a second? Thank you. I'm just going to talk about the dialogue for just one second about the dialogue. Sure, Vision and Wanda had some well-written conversations, but Vision is a character who is inherently atypical in the way he speaks and in the way you write it. So I'm not going to give the show credit for giving Vision some very good lines of dialogue. Otherwise, it's entirely generic.
Every scene outside of Westview has some of the most boilerplate dialogue in any Marvel studio production to date. One moment that gobsmacked me was during Wanda's memory of the Mind Stone. Begin experimentation. Doctor, not one subject has survived. Yeesh, that is some clunky exposition. I will give the writers credit where it's due. The era-specific banter and wordplay in the early episodes were great. It's clear that a lot of care went into those early episodes, playing around with the sitcom formats, and once the outside world became involved, the quality of the writing began to crack a little bit. And then there's the meta-commentary from Darcy and Jimmy. Yeah, that didn't work for me. It was cute the first time, it was tiresome a couple episodes later, and by the time Darcy was telling Vision the entire plot, I was completely over it.
I'm thinking about the scene with Jimmy, Monica, and Darcy, where they're all talking about the final battle in Endgame, and who did this and that to Thanos, and I'm just thinking, how do any of you know what happened in the Battle of Endgame? You don't, so don't talk about it as if you were there. That dialogue is meant to service the fans. And on that basic level, I wasn't serviced, I was just annoyed. The finale played things very safe. In fact, this show became more conventional as it went on. The first half, of course, with the sitcom subversions and tropes, it was a one-of-a-kind show. But by the time we get to the finale, it's just devolved into your usual Marvel special effects fighting, which is fine, but you need some more substance. Okay, so White Vision shows up in the second to last episode and the last episode. If WandaVision is 6 hours, we spend 5 hours wondering, Vision's dead, what's gonna happen? 5 hours in, Vision's resurrected! And he comes in. And then 20 minutes later, he gets his memory back and he flies off and he's gone and we never see him again. And then you do absolutely nothing with it except set him up for the future of the MCU. Instead of telling an actual coherent singular story with Wanda and Vision. We had Memory Vision, but he's gone, but is he? Because he says he's gonna see Wanda again at the end. Then we have White Vision who has the memories, but does he have the personality? I don't know, it's very muddled.
While Wanda may have been able to find some closure with the passing of Vision, as an audience member, I didn't. I didn't feel like there was any kind of substantial resolution for the character. Now it's just more questions. And from a storytelling standpoint, I consider that decision to not give Vision some actual final resolution a weakness on behalf of either the show's writers or Kevin Feige, who just doesn't want to let one character ever go. And yes, Tony Stark will be back someday, I promise you.
We were told that this would be connecting to the upcoming Doctor Strange and also maybe Spider-Man film. Didn't really get that here. Again, that's fine. We didn't have to, but don't tell us you're gonna have these connections if you don't have actual strong connections. I will say, I think Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. had more creative and more engaging integrations with the larger MCU. And the Marvel films wanted to pretend like Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. didn't even exist. Like this show with its, new version of the Darkhold. Although, I mean, to be fair, the previous design of the Darkhold was, exactly what you would expect for a Friday night 10 p.m. show on ABC. Well, we've reached the part of my notes where we talk about Rolf.
Boner.
This was an insult. How do you bring in Evan Peters, tease the fans, and bait the fans all for a boner joke? Kevin Feige, you had to have seen the negative reaction coming. To dangle your audience for a month, you're just stringing people along and stringing them along and
Boner.
I almost forgot to talk about the show's soundtrack from composer Christoph Beck, who previously did the Ant-Man films. The scores are alright, they're fun, they have a good vibe, nothing to write home about. The music in WandaVision is largely forgettable outside of the television show openers and some of the commercial jingles. I'm disappointed because a show like WandaVision should have music that is as abstract as almost everything else about the show, but the music is just pretty conventional television sci-fi fluff. Bear McCreary's score on Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., for example, far, far superior in every regard. Time for a speed round. How did the boner joke get his speed powers if he was just a normal person being possessed? How did Hayward reconstruct Vision so quickly? I mean, in a week, right? Wanda was there, he had a hole in his head, he was disassembled. A week later, I'm assuming in the show's timeline, he's all brand new! Where was Sword during any of the previous events in the MCU? Why did they kill Maria off screen?
Mystery box,
Why was Wanda keeping the town's children locked away except for on Halloween? Okay, this is an MCU retcon question. Since we now know that Wanda survived the Mind Stone experiments because she was a witch or had some latent powers, how did Quicksilver survive the experiments? He's not magical that we know of. How is it that the local cops were blind to Westview, but not Jimmy or Darcy or anyone else?
Mystery box.
How is Hayward tracking
The mystery box.
Why did Hayward lie to his team about Wanda taking Vision's body when his team, at least some of them, must have known about the assembled White Vision they brought to Westview? Literally 1/10 over, you have White Vision. And here you have Hayward in the command center. Don't look over there, guys, just listen to me. Vision is not in the next tent. He's not painted white. He's actually still dead, and he's over there in the hex. When Darcy was watching WandaVision, was she viewing it as 22-minute episodes? I mean, we know from at least one scene that she was seeing the end credits, so I would assume she's watching an edited 22-minute episode, but how does that track with the real-time scenes that we're seeing inside the hex? What's the translation here?
The mystery box meaning what you think you're getting, then what you're really getting.
It's fair to ask, what kind of role did COVID play in WandaVision falling apart near the end? However, I'm not using that as an excuse for WandaVision's quality near the end, because COVID has no bearing whatsoever on the quality of the screenwriting. There is nothing about COVID that would have stopped the showrunners and the writers' room from bulking up the scripts. So after all this nitpicking, it's only fair that I say what I would have done differently. First off, get rid of everything related to Sword and the outside world, cut the episode count down to 6, or even make it a movie. Keep the story squarely focused on Wanda trying to hold on to Vision as Vision notices his reality shifting. If this is a movie, constantly be changing the production design. Move up a decade every couple scenes. Have no 2 scenes look identical. Have fun with it. Let the situation devolve like in Darren Aronofsky's Mother. Let it be a full-blown psychological thriller and make it as surreal as you can. Yes, I know this would never fly with Marvel, I wouldn't expect it to, I'm just saying what I would have done. We meet Agatha, we learn pretty early on what her deal is. Agatha mentors Wanda, influences her to push her magic further, which causes Vision pain. Agatha tries to steal Wanda's power, and a giant magic fight ensues as it must. The way to defeat Agatha at that point has to be directly tied to sacrificing Vision. How? Why? I'll let the writers' room figure that part out. Vision, at this point having pieced the situation together, is willing to be sacrificed. In fact, he has to be the one to convince Wanda to let him go, just like in Infinity War. Why? Because dread it, run from it, destiny arrives all the same. Wanda finally comes to terms with losing Vision, says her final goodbye, and uses her newfound chaos magic to channel all of her grief directly into Agatha, killing her. The end. A complete, cohesive story.
So in conclusion, again, WandaVision as a whole was a good show. It was very well produced. It was very well directed. It was impeccably acted. The writing, not so much. Thanks for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed it. Please like the video, subscribe to the channel, comment below what did you think about WandaVision, and stay tuned for more right here on
Boner.